From the outside looking in, I was successful. And I think this is what happens to a lot of guys. You follow the path and you don't have anything to complain about. You hustle, grind 24/7, sleep when you're dead, make a lot of money. You follow all of the things you're supposed to do and you are successful by all societal metrics, but you feel empty and it ain't that great. If you want to make any changes in your life, you need to really stop and think about what success really looks like. What's really important to you. I just started to make better decisions, and those better decisions started to compound. You either define midlife or midlife defines you.
Midlife can actually be this best time.
You can grow, you can evolve. I could squander this, or I could release myself, pour some rocket fuel in the next phase of my life, and make it the best it can possibly be.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. And I'm delighted to have my guest on today, Greg Scheinman. He's an author, a podcast host, and creator of The Midlife Male. So more than any title, Greg really is a guide for those of us navigating what can often be a really messy middle of life. And in this conversation, he shares a blueprint that worked for him for what it really means to evolve, not by blowing everything up, which sometimes I think people feel like is the only way, but by making one better decision at a time. He's honest about what it took for him to get from high functioning, burnout to genuine fulfillment. And he offers deeply practical tools for getting there. So he's got something called the 6 F's, and it's the framework to the daily mindset of better one or better two. This really applies for so many things in our life. So whether you're feeling stuck in a role that no longer fits you, or wondering if it's too late to change, or trying to build a life that actually reflects who you are, Greg's perspective will remind you that the middle isn't a crisis, it's an opportunity. Welcome to the Gabby Reece Show. Let's go. Greg, welcome to my house. You're my first weekend podcast, I think. Maybe I've done a Saturday. I've never done a Sunday.
What a pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
I mean, this made me happy to wake up Sunday morning and drive up here and be with you. This is what it's about. So thank you.
Yeah. And we spent some time together in February at XPT. So that was nice. Right? Wasn't it February or was it late January? I can't remember.
I think it was end of January, maybe end of January. Or
That's crazy.
And it seems like it was yesterday. And that was an experience in Kauai, my first time in Hawaii.
Oh.
And to be there with you and with Laird and with your team, it was amazing.
Yeah. So let's jump in. So you gave me your book, Midlife Male, in Kauai. And I looked at it and I didn't know we were going to be doing this. Mm-hmm. So the first thing I thought of when I read the book was, you talk about kind of looking in the mirror and really, and metaphorically sort of getting naked and being honest with yourself. It's that notion of like first being honest with yourself, and then you can be honest with other people and honest about your life. And I was wondering, I wonder what you saw in this time in your life, not the time that made you make the switch, but the time right now where you're at about yourself that you didn't see when you were in your 30s.
I thought about it a lot this morning on the drive up here. I actually recorded about 17 minutes worth of just talking to myself, kind of vlogging on the way up here about this, because at 52 right now, if you would have asked me or told me that this would be my life, waking up in a rented cottage 50 feet from the beach in Venice with my beautiful wife sleeping next to me, our son in the other room who's 18 and about to start college. I'm making coffee. I'm driving up to Laird Hamilton and Gabby Reece's house in Malibu to guest on a podcast about what has changed and evolved in my life. And then I have a book out, and that I would have told you to bet the under, that's not going to happen. And it was a conversation with myself and hopefully to the thousands of men that read Midlife Male now every single week about what's possible and how to make the possible probable. And really what what did I do? And to answer your question directly, when I look in the mirror now versus then, and now I can feel it. I almost don't even have to look all the time. There's a contentment. There's a security there. There's a belief in who I am and what I'm doing that didn't exist before. And there really was nothing special about it, nothing unique, nothing proprietary, nothing technologically advanced, no extreme biohacking or any of these other things. It was simple, and simple was really hard. But I just started to make better decisions each day, one at a time. And those better decisions started to compound. And here we are 5 years later. And what I saw in the mirror then, wanting to manifest something different and a new way to see middle age, here we are 5 years later, and it's happening. And still nowhere near, like, I don't even know where the finish line is. What I'm saying is I'm just getting started, just getting warmed up. But these constant actions, the constant better choices, are leading me to places that I didn't think possible before, but are proving to me that it's probable. And I want that to come across to every other individual out there, not just middle-aged men, but at any age or stage or gender of life you're at, that you can grow, you can evolve, you can change. It's never too late. It's never too early to start.
In oversimplifying, it's hard to articulate, but in thinking about this message, like, you do talk to, midlife male men, right? And sometimes, I don't want to say it would be hard to have a movement for men, but this whole idea of, underserved groups and, it's an interesting spot to be saying, hey, we're going to empower men and give men a voice. And I always joke that, I living with a really exceptional person who happens to be male, that, half the best people I know are men. But I sometimes feel like there's this weird spot with this idea of, the negative connotation of masculinity, but really the beautiful, the true, if they were going to say the divine masculine. And how for young men, they don't get taught how to cultivate the best parts of masculinity. They get sort of told, hey, listen, get out there, be tough, be strong, go make some money, go do all this stuff. And it ends up weirdly being a trap. They get painted in this corner, but then they don't know how to ask for help or say, hey, maybe this isn't what I wanted. I'm stuck. I now have responsibility. I have a family. I have children. And I'm suffering and I'm in pain, because sometimes it feels like, hey, there's no room for you guys because we have all these other people, right? Because of the every side has a negative side, right? So the negative side of masculinity has made it that the larger group of men, the men that are trapped in their parents' basement, the men that are in their middle age drinking too much alcohol because they don't know how to raise their hand and productively say, I did what I thought I was supposed to do, and now I'm stuck and I'm living a life that isn't mine, but I have to be brave. I'm gonna, medicate with alcohol or something else. So in saying this, because I can say it because I'm a female, how do you start to unpeel that onion and people not going, oh, come on, give me a break. You're advocating for men run the world, patriarchal society, all this narrative that we've got floating around, because I understand the nuance. Mm-hmm. So maybe let's start with you personally. What was that journey from the job you had? You had children pretty early, and your 20s is early, starting anyway. And then, what happens? You get to where in your life?
We can take it back even a little bit further. And I'm nodding as you were saying everything that you were, because you were describing me to a T. And I speak to midlife men, if you will, right now, because that's who I am and what I am. Do I think the messaging applies to anyone and everyone? Absolutely. But the lens that I see life through is right now a 52-year-old middle-aged man. And I started this at 47 when I got to this tipping point where I was going to actually start to express my feelings, actually start to make change. And what you're describing in terms of the kind of men that you have seen in your life, and one that you're married to, which was really one of the very first magazine pages I tore out, was an article on Laird in Men's Health magazine, and he's holding a big Atlas stone and he's underwater, and I'm reading this. I didn't have those kind of men in my life growing up. They weren't around me. And I didn't have them in the early stages of my career. I grew up very entitled, if you will, very privileged on the North Shore of Long Island, where I felt there was nowhere to go but down. And my father, unfortunately, got sick when I was a teenager, and he passed away when I was 17, and I was in the room when he passed away. And there was no business to go into anymore. There was no father figure, no father, no mentor, no advisor. I wasn't ready to be the man of the house. I have 2 younger brothers, and I took off to college. Yeah. And I didn't know what to chase at that point.
But what's the expectation? Because I think there's sort of bad actors, but real masculinity is quite a beautiful thing. And also, I think there's a message, especially your father's generation, be the breadwinner, good enough. If you come home, you interact with your kids or not, like you're providing. So there's obviously a balance. But what message did you have at 17, which, by the way, I think 14 to 17 is the single hardest time to lose a parent, because you're transitioning from one place in your life to the next. So people would think, oh, when you're little, it's actually not true. It's when you're that exact age, because your whole foundation gets shook. But what message do you think you went into college with, what you were supposed to do?
What I was supposed to do, and what I always saw, was you go off to college, you graduate, you get a job, you get married, you hustle, grind 24/7, sleep when you're dead, make a lot of money, have kids, move out to the suburbs, join the country club, have the 2 fancy cars in the driveway, go to dinner with a few couples every weekend, take the requisite vacation. This was the path. This was the norm. And I didn't see another way. And that's what I did. I chased those things. I chased those societal, masculine, if you will, metrics for success. It's a lot of what I saw my dad do also every day. Get up, get dressed, put the suit on, go to work, smoke, drink, come home, sit at the table with the checkbook, do all of those different things. And around our community and around our friends, our family friends, that's what we saw too. That's what you did throughout. And it just didn't work for me. 20s, 30s, 40s. I'm a slow learner and a late bloomer.
But when you say, hey, it just didn't work for me, I mean, you were successful. So what does that mean? It didn't work for you?
From the outside looking in, I was successful. And I think this is what happens to a lot of guys. You follow the path and you don't have anything to complain about. Who am I to complain? I should be grateful for all this. So many other guys would trade places with me. I did. I have the beautiful wife and the beautiful kids, 2 boys, and it's very hard to raise 2 sons, I think, when you talk about masculinity and how to do it. And our boys are 21 and 18 right now, and we can get into this. You follow all of the things you're supposed to do, and you are successful by all societal metrics, but you feel empty. And I felt empty, conformity, complacency, redundancy, which really equates to mediocrity. And I was a highly functioning, depressed, mediocre, middle-aged man. And it felt like City Slickers, that movie. It's just the best I'm ever going to look, the best I'm ever going to feel, the best I'm ever going to do. And it ain't that great. Yeah. And it was all my fault. It was all the actions I was taking and the choices I was making. And I was deflecting and deferring and blaming and doing all and accepting all of these other things. But it was only when I started to take ownership of it that real hard, long, good, naked, raw look in the mirror and say, hey, like, you got to own this. And if you want to make any changes in your life, you need to really stop, take a breath, and think about what success really looks like. What's really important to you? Because these situations and circumstances can either defeat you or define you. Mm-hmm. Which one is it going to be? Better one or better two? That became my question. As simple as that. I'm like a golden retriever. You throw the ball, like I'll bring it back. But I need that kind of plan and that kind of simplicity. And it became as simple as better one or better two, asking myself that question every day. And I came up with that because I have bad eyes. And we'd go to the eye doctor. And they put the phoropter, is what it's called now, in front of your face. And they flip the lenses around and they say better one or better two. And you answer, okay, and they keep flipping them and they repeat the question over and over again. And as they flip these lenses around, what happens? All of a sudden, you can start to see clearly. The writing on the wall goes from fuzzy and out of focus to clear as a bell. And that's really just what I did with my life. Is it better to go through the drive-thru and eat fattening, horrible food, or meal prep and cook a healthy meal? Is it better to kiss Kate good morning before I get out of bed, or roll out of bed and take her for granted because we've been together for 20 plus years? Is it better to get up early and go to the gym, or sleep in and make an excuse? Is it better to pour myself that shot of tequila when I come home from work at the end of the day before I walk my dog and that shot kept getting bigger and bigger and the walk kept getting longer and longer? Or pour myself something else like a layered superfood cup of, what are the alternatives and what are the choices? Yeah. And most of the time, Gabby, they're obvious. We know the answers to the test. What's hard is doing it.
You know, I can't help but think, because Kate's a pivotal character in your story. Mm-hmm. You know, when we have somebody, we've all had coaches or teachers or a friend or an older adult or mentor that maybe saw things in us that we didn't see, or saw our essence, if you will. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that belief really can push us over to our better side, to better one, better two kind of thing. And it made me wonder, though, if you're working, you're successful, but that connection isn't there. Now you're landing in a place where you need deep thoughtfulness and intimacy, because exchanging of true ideas and true fears that's true intimacy. Intimacy is not just a physical act, right? It's revealing yourself and your fears and all these things. So at a time that maybe you were, I would imagine, if you're going on the treadmill and the least connected to Kate, then how does that conversation happen? Because I sort of thought, well, if she pressured you another way, like, hey, listen, we have these kids and we have this life, we just got to keep rolling, that wouldn't have been helpful. And it's something that's already difficult. You need your partner to be on your side.
Absolutely. And our relationship has evolved and grown and changed, and has also not been easy from the get-go. And none of them are. I mean, I was a 20-something-year-old film producer when we met. At the bar of the Mondrian Hotel, thinking this was going to be great for a weekend, not for 26 years, married with two boys living in Houston, Texas. And even as our relationship grew and we got married, what do you think? You think I've met a wonderful person and I want to spend my life with her. But what does that mean? She'll probably be a good mother, but we don't really know until you have children together. She likes what I'm doing right now and clearly loves who I am right now, but I don't know if I'm going to do that forever. So all of these things changed over time, and you have that connection and then reconnection. And I think you have to keep reestablishing that connection and really continue to touch base with one another at each phase of your life. Do we still like each other? Do we still really love each other around all of these things that are happening? And are we on board with what one another are doing. And that has not always been easy. There has not always been alignment there. We can joke about it a lot right now that I've put her on an unbelievable roller coaster and she doesn't like roller coasters, and risk. And I've been a risk taker for the vast majority of my life and trying different things and to figure it out and to test and retest along the way. And she's been the grounding force through all of that. So to your point, when you say, if one of us is going one way and the other one is going the other way, some of the best decisions that I was able to make in my life, I was able to make because she was there helping me to make the better decision. Mm-hmm. Hey, maybe you shouldn't quit your job and follow your passion right now. We have 2 children in private school, okay? We have a mortgage now. You're doing, by the way, really well. You've got equity in. Maybe now's not the right time to go just jump off the cliff and say, I'm going to go become a podcaster and a newsletter writer because you think you're creative, okay, and want to go do that. And a lot of those conversations, sitting down at the table like this, I talk a lot about running your life like you run your business.
Yeah.
Because a lot of men understand business. We got KPIs for business. We've got quarterly reviews. We've got business plans and pro formas and ways that we manage people and all of these things. But when I ask guys for the plan for their life, they don't have it. So a lot of what I do is put things, even for myself, contextually in a business-like format. And we would sit down and have these business-like conversations about how do we want our life to look like. And even when I wasn't the CEO of my own company, I was still the CEO of my own life. Mm-hmm. And that's what we would talk about, being co-CEOs of our family and the family business. So we have a family office, not monetarily, like we have a family business and a family office, and we work really hard to run it that way. And there's a lot of compromise in that. And there's a lot of, if you don't quit, to follow your passion right now. And there's nothing wrong with following your passion. But she would turn around and say, you know what, if you quit and follow your passion right now, that's the most galactically irresponsible thing you could possibly do for all of us. Why don't we stop and think about what it would look like to navigate out of the situation we're currently in over the right amount of time that is the most responsible and respectful for all of us? What if you looked at it that way? Better one or better two. Yeah. And guess what, genius? Maybe it's not the job. Maybe it's not the company. Maybe it's not the business partners. Maybe it's you and your attitude. And instead of being anxious and unhappy about this and blaming and comparing and contrasting, maybe you could just look at it differently. Maybe you could be grateful for what the opportunity in the career is providing to all of us and use it to platform and be one of the highest paid podcasters and newsletter writers in the world for the next 3 years. Why? Because you didn't quit. Yeah. And because the proceeds of what you were doing, and quite frankly, doing pretty well, are enabling you to do this. They're permitting you to do this. And when that lens and perspective started to change, a lot of other things started to change. That ownership. It was less of a, things are not good over here and it's all your fault. I didn't have the right support staff. I didn't have the right people around me. My partners didn't like me. My clients were sour. All of the other things. No. I get to host a podcast and write a newsletter and help men and interview incredible people from 47 to 50 while I'm figuring all of this out, and be grateful for the opportunity to do it. And my business got better and my relationships got better. Yeah. So I know there's a lot in that bucket and a lot to unpack, but I think that's what a lot of men really, really, really struggle with, which is that confusion and that pit that's even in my stomach when I talk about it right now. The middle is messy. It's like really messy. But if you can start seeing it as the sweet spot, if you can start seeing it as aspirational instead of as something to fear, it gets really interesting then. And if you can combine that intersection, if you can get to that intersection of personal passion and professional expertise, that's when it really gets magical. And we can do that. We can all do that. You can write a midlife action plan, your map, to actually achieve that.
And I think what you're saying is true into so many scenarios, because the perception would be, it's like when people talk about a 12-year overnight success, right? Like from the outside looking in, it always looks like, oh, he pulled the ripcord and then just started this new thing. And you talk about the 3 years you interview people. I think you had like 200 interviews or something insane like that.
200 interviews over 3 years from 47 to 50.
Yeah.
To take my why and figure out how.
Yeah. And so I have a dear friend, Neil Strauss. He wrote The Game, and we've talked a lot about this. We're parallel pathing. So if you're in something, no matter what age you are, wherever, if you're in a gig, stay in your gig. But if you have this other idea, put the energy into it and see if you can get that train up to speed to the train that you're on. And then when it makes sense, you can get off the platform, get onto the next train and take off. And so I think what you're saying is really important, because you're not saying, hey, it's not possible to make a change. Because I think that's why people blow it all up, is they don't see where it could go. Because I do think we can not only improve our attitude, improve where we're at, stay where we're at when we go, yes, and I'm also simultaneously working out of this into this new thing, but I'm doing it in this reasonable, calculated, assessed way.
We did it at XPT. Where do you go? You start from the shallow end and you go to the middle of the pool, then you go to the deep end of the pool. And in some cases, you're capable of starting in the deep end of the pool, going to the middle of the pool, and going to the shallow end of the pool, because there's different degrees of difficulty and challenge in both directions. And we're all built and wired differently. Some of us were much more capable of going vertical. It was horizontal we had a problem with.
Yeah.
Some of us had no problem going horizontal, but couldn't handle the vertical in there, and how you navigated. And what you guys did so brilliantly was put us all in the best position to be successful. And I think that's what's really important here. That's what you're saying, is there's so much white space between where you are and where you want to go. And that can become really crippling and really paralyzing, and again, really confusing, because you can see the outcome, or you know it, but it seems so far away and unattainable from where you are. The struggle is, how do you connect? How do you connect the dots? Go, what are the steps that I need to take? How do I master the middle and get there? And that's what holds, I think, again, a lot of guys up. But when you can actually reverse engineer back, I call it was a great book that I read called Vivid Vision by Cameron Herold. And short book, because I'm not a great reader. I think it was about 75 pages. You can read it in no time. But at the essence of the book was to create this vivid vision for your life 3 years down the road, and then reverse engineer back to how you're going to actually make that happen. And what does that look like? If I want to live the fit life, what's the definition for a fit life? To be 175 pounds, roughly 10% body fat, be able to do what I want, when I want, with who I want, for as long as I want. Okay, what does that look like in daily practice? Meaning, how much do I have to exercise?
Yeah.
What is that plan? If I want to spend quality time with my family, coach Little League, not die at my desk, travel a certain amount of year. What does that look like in practice and application? How much money do I need? How much time do I need? What sacrifices am I willing to make? Again, this business plan, if you will, for your life categorically. And we got it down. I read this book, and you have to start putting pen to paper and creating that vision board and articulating it. And you don't have to be a writer, because I've never been a writer. Now I've written books and I write 6,000 words a week that goes out to these men. And I still don't consider myself a writer. You can figure out how to get the job done. I use voice memos now. You can use ChatGPT. There's all kinds of ways that you can articulate what it is you're thinking now and get it into a format that can really help you. And that's what I was able to do across what became my 6Fs. We talked about this chase, of salary and title. And when I stopped chasing salary and title and looked at what total life wellness really was, became my 6Fs: family, fitness, finance, food, fashion, fun. These were the things that I was interested in.
Yeah.
And that collectively sounded like a rich, full, wealthy, healthy life for me. So now we have to create standards for each one of those categories. And that's what I was able to do simplistically, and wake up and read it every day. And once you have version 1.0, is with an upgrade, now 1.1 is not as hard. You can pivot, you can upgrade, you can tweak it. 2.0 is not as hard as, like they say, your first million is the hardest million.
Yeah.
After that, you generate some momentum.
Is it belief or is it experience, proof of concept? Like, what do you think that is? Is it systematizing and understanding the formula? And even when you don't know, you go, I'll figure it out.
I definitely think a lot is belief, and confidence is a skill, and it's a muscle, and you can develop it. I'm not a confident person by nature.
It's funny, in XPT, I was thinking, because you're very fit. Congratulations, way to go. And you work at it and you know how to help other people with it. Like there's some experience there. But I was like, oh, this is a very sensitive person. And it's so interesting because, again, I doing the training, and the pool is very revealing, right? Like the pool is, I think, one of the most stripped down environments for training for anyone. And I can't tell you how many very, and I put in quotes, strong, physically powerful, maybe military men. And the pool shows me right away, a lot of those people, a lot of them are very, very sensitive. And so it's an interesting thing. It's almost a pattern, if I could tell you, like that I've seen those two cohorts living so side by side. And so it's funny because going back to the world we live in, you're being an advocate for men because you're a guy. So you're like, hey, this is my life's experience. Let's talk about it. Let's huddle up. Let's get together. If I'm a little ahead of you, let me help you. If you know something, you can help me. How do we make that okay? Because I think it's important. Mm-hmm. I think we live in a time that everyone should be supported. But I think it's good for society if men are showing up in their best selves. How do we do that? How are you doing that in a way? Because I could imagine, are people like, oh yeah, middle-aged guys need help? Like, what does that look like?
I think there's a lot of that out there. I think you're right. That is it hard to be a successful white middle-aged guy? Like, who's breaking out the violin for you?
Well, overall? Yeah, with 10% body fat and biceps and everything. Like,
and let's peel this back a little bit. First of all, I don't look like this because I'm so confident and so secure with myself. It's the exact opposite.
Right.
There's always something you're not seeing. And the thing in sometimes these fit people who have it all figured out or seemingly looks, we do not. We're overcompensating. I have body image issues. I have confidence issues. I'm more comfortable under the water because it's quiet and peaceful and I'm alone. Mm-hmm. And nobody can see me there or judge me there, or I have to worry about anything. That's the sensitivity part of the whole thing. I do a lot now where I am forced in a way to be extroverted.
Yeah.
I didn't ask for this. I love it in a lot of ways, but I'm a very introverted person who would much rather be home, using our pizza oven and being with my family and being with Kate than feeling that I have to be on or something for everybody or anybody else. And now, quite frankly, it is exhausting hearing from so many men every day that you want to help and you know exactly where they are because you have been there. And I'm not a doctor, and I'm not a therapist, and I'm not a trained coach or any of these other things that are out there. So you asked like how we can help people.
Yeah.
I think it's by living and leading by example. I think it's by acknowledging that I'm nothing special, that I'm just like you. And the only thing that I really do differently is keep going, is just be willing to try now. Because when I wasn't willing to try, when I wasn't willing to own up to these things, when I wasn't willing to ask for help or get on a plane and go to Kauai and make excuses for everything else, when I wasn't doing those things, that's when my life really had issues and had problems. That's when I really was a highly functioning, depressed individual. And you can be a highly functioning, depressed individual.
Yeah.
And that is really draining. You know, I say chasing authenticity where authenticity does not exist is exhausting. And I did that for years, and I was exhausted. And when you let that go, the world starts to open up for you, and you begin to attract and repel exactly what you deserve. And I think that's how we help people. I think that's what we all can do. There used to be this saying, I think it was an old advertising campaign, which ages me now, I guess, again, also, where it was like, act globally, think, or act locally, think globally.
Yeah.
And I think it's that, Gabby. I think it's, hey, handle your shit, basically.
Yeah.
Take care of your own backyard, yourself, your family, live and lead by example. And if we all do that, that's going to gravitate, that's going to permeate out.
This podcast has been brought to you by Laird Superfood. Laird Superfood was started in my kitchen by my husband, Laird, almost 10 years ago. And this is a brand that's very easy for me to talk about. I'm involved with it every day. Just to share with you some of the thoughts and feelings behind our guardrails, it always starts first with ingredients. So of course we wouldn't use artificial ingredients, but one of our guardrails is not to use natural flavors as well, because as you go, you sort of realize like natural flavors, there's some pretty loosey-goosey rules on that. So, you know, best in class ingredients, but we want you to enjoy the experience. We know like it doesn't matter how good something is for you. If you're not going to enjoy it, especially things like your coffees and creamers and a ritual that we do every day, it doesn't really matter. And we also try to really consider cost and accessibility. So that just gives you a sense of where we're coming from. And we have so many incredible SKUs and products that can support you throughout your day. So whether, again, it's coffee or creamers, we've got some incredible coffee, high altitude, low acidic, organic Peruvian coffee, really, really good. We have creamers that are filled with adaptogens. And for the moment, all of our creamers are dairy-free. And you have so many healthy ingredients inside them, but we've got turmeric and mocha, however you like it. And one of my favorite categories are instant products. So a lot of times I think people don't think that you can have these high level products that are instant where you just add hot water. You can even ice them down if you prefer. We have instant latte, instant mocha. We have an instant maca latte. We have an instant vanilla latte, chai and matcha for my non-coffee drinkers. And of course, we have our Laird Superfood greens, easy to mix in water, great soluble ingredients, no fillers. So depending on what you're looking for, bars, coffees, creamers, greens, hydrate products with something called Aquamin in it. Laird Superfood has you covered. And if you have not tried our products, head to lairdsuperfood.com. That's LAIRDSUPERFOOD.com and go ahead and use the code GABBY20, GABBY20 for 20% off your entire order at lairdsuperfood.com. So if someone's listening to this, you did have an idea in your mind. And so, and you sort of built that as you were going. If someone's listening to this and they're, you know, screaming on the inside and they're like, something's got to give, but they don't have an other. What do you think would be a good way? So, you know, you talk a lot about personal accountability. You know, maybe it's certainly the first thing would be get out of any victim mentality that you're in, because how do you get to your own voice without that kind of ownership? But if someone's like, hey, I'm not creative like you were, or I don't know what I want to do, but this isn't it. What are some practices maybe that would be at least a beginning to to sort of seek that out or investigate that?
I'll give you 5 rules. 5 rules that I follow that have made a difference in my life and now have made a difference in hundreds of other men's lives. And again, you can give them to anybody. They'll work at any age or stage of life. And these have come from, again, 200 plus interviews on both sides, testing and retesting for the last 5+ years, and now 52 on this planet. And it's come down to 5 rules that I follow now. Number 1, knowing what's important is what's most important. You got to start there. You got to sit down and you got to really think about that. What is most important to you? And that can be anything. For me, that became my 6 F's and what that really looked like. Number 2, if you don't know where you're going, you are never going to get there. I was rudderless for years. Didn't have a plan. Now, you don't need to know exactly where you're going. You can start shallow and wide. I'm going west. I know I'm going west. And as you start going west and heading west, over time, now shallow and wide starts to become narrow and deep. And west might be California, it might be Malibu, it might be Arizona. But if you don't know where you're going, you're never going to get there. You have to start picking a destination and head in that direction. Number 3, aggregate, curate, and eliminate. I call this my ACE principle. There is so much noise out there that what's happened is you get bombarded by all the noise. You can aggregate from everything that's out there, take it all in. But the key is you've got to curate it down to what works for you and be relentless about eliminating what does not. Because otherwise you're just going to get run over like a freight train by everything that's out there, and you're going to be in that game of tug of war where both sides are equally strong and that flag never moves. Nobody wins there. The 4th is show me your calendar, I'll show you your priorities. It's as simple as that. If you tell me your family is the most important thing and I ask you to pick up your phone or show me your calendar and they're not on there, it's not measurable, it's not quantifiable. If you tell me your health is important to you and you have a health standard of this and I ask you to show me your calendar and your workouts and your fitness is not on there with the same degree of importance as your board meeting or anything else, it's not measurable and quantifiable. Show me your calendar, I'll show you your priorities. And when you start doing that, what also happens is a tremendous amount of open space shows up. So all this busyness, I'm always too busy. I'm too busy to do everything on there. When you start utilizing one calendar, and guys, stop with this 2 and 3 calendars, my work calendar, my personal calendar, the one I show my wife or whatever. You have one life, it's one calendar.
Right. I'm with you.
So it's one calendar and everything is on it. And it is in priority order. I start with the personal and then I back into the professional. If it's Little League season, the Little League games go on the calendar before any of my professional obligations that are on there, so on and so forth. And the last one, which is really the most important, is grace, gratitude, and latitude. Rule number 5, which could be rule number 1. We are way too hard on ourselves. Be kinder to yourself. You don't have to accomplish it all overnight. We overestimate what we can do in a day. We underestimate what we can do in a year. And even further, we overestimate what we can do in a year, and we underestimate what we can do in 10. There is no overnight success, like you said.
No.
It could be 5, it could be 10, it can be 20. Be kind to yourself along the way and begin to enjoy and embrace the process. Progress is a process. When you embrace and start enjoying that, it becomes fun. You're not racing to this proverbial finish line. You're actually excited to be engaged in what you're doing each day. And you can be intentional and present about it without thinking about where am I going right after this.
Yeah.
And one eye is on you and the next one is like, what is next out there? Develop your rhythm, your cadence, and have some fun with it.
Yeah. You talk a lot about the long game in your book and in your messaging. And what I think people don't realize, the long game is quiet and there's a slowness to it. It's sort of like building muscle or training or health or deep relationship. I think most of it, there's very few lightning bolts in life. I think most of it is in this long game form, the stuff that really stands, it's slow and quiet. And I think when we get used to that and we understand that that's the real stuff, that's the building, the layers and the layers of the metal in all of it, that we go, yeah, that's the way it is.
What's the saying? Slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
Yeah.
I really believe it. And it's not an excuse to go slow or to not be successful or to justify why you're not making progress or why you're not as rich as the other guy or as muscular as the other person or, having kids at the same time as your friends or getting married. All the keeping up with whoever the Joneses are, all of that, comparison, which is the thief of joy. It's not about giving yourself an excuse or justifying going slow and not having things. It's simply about embracing the notion that I can be strategic and tactical and run my own race. And some guys are going to run a 6-minute mile and some guys are going to run a 9-minute mile. And you know what? You're both going to get there. But if the 9-minute guy starts to drop the hammer at mile 11 to try to keep up with the 6-minute mile guy, there's a really high likelihood he's going to blow an engine and not get there. So as you continue to get better, faster, stronger, wiser, whatever these, then maybe you can turn the dial. The speed starts to go up, maybe the rhythm and cadence, or maybe it goes the other way. How many people do we know that are racing that would benefit from turning the dial down versus up? Yeah. And I think this is a very individual thing. You get back into self-awareness and who you're turning to for help and guidance and back to aggregation and curation. Who am I listening to? What resonates with me? Do I want to take 96 pills in the morning? Because so-and-so has that kind of morning routine and so does this one. Do I want to wake up before the sunrise every day for the rest of my life? Do I want to stay out late or get up? What works for me? Do I want to be on the 24th floor of an office building overlooking downtown Houston in a suit that I don't feel comfortable with or not? We have choices for all of these situations and circumstances that we somehow find ourselves in. And unwinding it and untangling it and getting out of it, it's harder to get out of things than it is to get into them. So I'll add one more thing. Start getting good at saying no. I wasn't for a very long time. As a pleaser, as an insecure individual, I thrive on being accepted, doing things for other, saying yes, being a people pleaser.
Yeah.
And that's a slippery slope. Doesn't leave a whole lot over for you after a while. That's a lot of volume, a lot of pressure. And just like confidence is a skill and is a muscle you can develop, so is learning to say no politely.
Yeah.
And when you can start to do that based upon, hey, I've got my foundation. I've got my 5 rules. I've got my written midlife action plan. It says it right here. These are my standards. These are my values. This is what I put on my body, in my body, how we're approaching things each and every day. I just have to look at the plan, stay with the plan. Does this require a yes or a no? All of a sudden, it becomes simpler.
It's funny to look at you from the outside. And again, I was fortunate. I feel like I'm always really fortunate when I get to see people doing XPT because I get to know them much deeper very quickly. And it doesn't mean I know their favorite color or what, where they live or, all these nuance, but I get their essence pretty quickly. And it's a very rich experience. But when you say as a people pleaser, as an insecure person, what does that mean? Because I think those are words that we think are for women. We throw them around, What does that mean for a successful man out in the world to experience that? What does that feel like?
It's a constant conflict of interest. Really. Because on one hand, we are supposed to be confident
Yeah.
and strong and prideful in a lot of ways, and be the protectors and be the providers and be the man of the house and the family, and all of these, again, things that at least I thought or think you're supposed to be, as a man. I don't know if all of that's true per se, but that is what I have felt and believed, if you will, for a while, and was ingrained. And I look around and see other men, including your husband, go, how are they doing it? And they're doing it better. And they seem to be stronger and deeper and wealthier and this. And by the way, they never seem to be rushed and frantic. And what's going on the inside? Because on the inside with me, it's this jumbled mess, okay, of, are they seeing what's going on in here? Or am I putting on a brave face? Am I strong enough to shave my head when I'm going bald versus combing it over? Like, am I okay with talking about all of these things that are there? So now it's, again, like, I don't even remember the question anymore, but what it really is it's really, really challenging to be in this constant state of dichotomy.
Mm-hmm.
And back to, what is real strength? What is real masculinity? What is really authentic? To the extent that you're so authentic that you don't have to say the word, because it radiates out there. It's kind of like starting a sentence with, I'll be honest with you. I try not to do that because it's like, if you're honest, you don't need to start a sentence with, I'll be honest with you, because the assumption would be I'm not at times. So if I keep telling you how authentic I am, you're probably going to question my authenticity.
Yeah.
But if I can just show you and go, look, it's probably harder for you to make fun of me if I just make fun of myself. A lot of this is rooted in like self-deprecation as another defense mechanism. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of us men use things as defense mechanisms to cover for the insecurities that we're feeling. If I say it about me, around towards me, it can't hurt me really with that. So I don't know if you resolve it per se. There's a lot of this talk, it comes out a lot. Oh, you've reinvented yourself during this process. And I think reinvention is overused. So is transformation. A lot of these, again, big buzzwords that are out there about, that are so extreme. We talked about this a little bit, like these extremes that are out there. And I love your definition of extreme as it pertains to extreme performance training and what you view as an extreme lifestyle, because the beauty of it is actually it's very sustainable. It's very longevity based. It's actually rooted in simplicity. Mm-hmm. But there are so many extremists out there that are rooted in this, again, if we're not yelling and screaming and pressing and constantly achieving, or this notion of what high performance lifestyles look like, then you're not successful and you don't really have it figured out and you have all of this work to do until you get there. And I just don't buy that.
No.
I don't buy that. I feel like you can just be you and be the best version of yourself that you can be. And that whatever you want to title it, high performance, maximized living, all of these titles that we don't have to give it a title. You just have to, hey, how do I define success? How do I define happiness? Do I want to say it? So say it. If I don't. If I want to go. If I don't. And you start stacking those things, those little wins each day.
Yeah.
And you start minimizing the losses in there. Now you got something. That's a longer book title. Everyone wants the, like the quick buzzword or the quick phrase or the quick thing that's going to fix it all.
No.
Nah.
It's interesting living with someone like Laird, because it's just funny how, in a way, Laird was left alone to grow up as himself, right? No real expectation. Maybe there was a notion culturally, like you had to be tough, maybe, Hawaii, Polynesian culture. These are in a different way are pretty strong people, like you're in the water, you hunt, you fish, if you had to fight, you would fight. But what it ended up happening maybe for him, and that's why I actually think he is one of the more authentic people I've ever seen, truly. Peel it back, peel it back, peel it back. It matches the inside to the outside layer. Is there was a freedom to pursue his own expectation, his own voice, his own thing that you're saying. It's like early, sometimes almost like in civilized world, like you're in Long Island and there's a way, and then you go, like you said, you hear this is what you do. That sometimes that system really is harmful to us because it pulls us away from asking ourselves the questions at 8, at 9, at 12, at 14, like, who am I? What do I like? So you live in the world. You have 2 sons. How do you balance? Okay, you did it one way-ish, and now you're doing it, and it's not a reinvention. It's a redirect. You'd have adapted.
I call it a release. That I didn't reinvent myself. I released myself.
Yeah.
This has always been here. Here's an opportunity for me to just let it out and release it. Yeah. To your point, we're given the answers. Like that's what happened to me. Again, incestuous community. Everybody did things the same way. This is where you are. You're living in a bubble, in a vacuum. I'm not exposed to any or all of these differences or diversities in the world or people that are out there. So here are the answers. This is what you're supposed to.
This is what you do.
What if you don't like the answers?
Yeah.
What if the answers don't feel like they're the right answers for you?
How do you
on paper, it looks like, why wouldn't you like the answers to this?
Yeah. Wow.
Like, wow, who wouldn't want this career and this life and in this community and in this place? And if you drive up this driveway, to the right, you could play golf, or to the left, you play tennis, and those are your choices. What if I want other choices?
Yeah.
I never met a Navy SEAL before. I never met a big wave surfer before. I've never talked to a volleyball player, Olympic champion, any of the people out there that I have now had the opportunity to sit down and talk to. I'd never been in the woods, for 10 days. I've never done anything where I kept my mouth closed at a silent, retreat. I'd never sat in a circle and passed a talking stick around. Like, these are all things that I've been doing. I had to get to 47, the same age as when my dad died, to say, wait a minute, there's an opportunity to do all these other things. Mm-hmm. I'm here one day longer on this planet than he had a chance to live. I could squander this and keep going down this path, or I could release myself, pour some rocket fuel in the next phase of my life, and make it the best it can possibly be. And that's what I tell my boys.
I was going to say, how do you, because see, I even think about that as a parent, is like, how do I not subject my children to my system? Because I've created a system that works for me, and Laird's created one that works for him, and we've created one that works for us. But they are, unfortunately for them, there's a lot of good stuff in there. However, it's still our system. Mm-hmm. So how do you parent your boys in a way to be like, hey, this is the way we're doing it now, your mother and I and myself. But I want to encourage you to question, how do you push them into those things so that they get reconnected or continuously connected to their inner voice, their inner wisdom?
I think it comes back to something I said earlier, and it's not just to repeat myself, but it is to live and lead by example. I think we really try hard not to pressure our boys and not to tell them that there's one way of doing anything, that there's one way to be successful, that our way is the right way or the only way. But, and I even say this to my clients now, I don't give advice. I'll share experiences. And you can do with those experiences what you please, because back to what I want you to be able to do is think for yourself. I'll share my experience. I'll provide perspective and insight and maybe even access to individuals or people, and maybe open up my network, whatever, and share accountability and other things to you. But you need to use your own brain. You need to use your own mind, your spirit, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, financially, physically, whatever it is. Our job, our role is hopefully to give you put some tools in your toolbox.
Yeah.
And then you start to think about which tools I'm going to use, which levers I'm going to pull. And back to the 5 rules, back to the questions. Think and fail. Go out and think and try and fail. Yesterday, Harper, our younger son, said to us, he had a stomach ache for the last 2 days. And he said to us at dinner, he wasn't feeling, I'm going to start to eat better.
Yeah, they do that.
I'm going to start to eat better, and I'm actually going to start to exercise a little bit more. Basketball season's over. He's gotten a little complacent in there. He's 18. It's easier to go out with your friends and eat the fast food and spend time with your girl. And without any provocation or anything, well, in a couple of days, you're not feeling so hot. Huh. Okay, what did he come up with?
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe, just maybe, it's because I haven't been taking the best care of myself. Yeah. And here I am in California. It's beautiful out. And I'm not feeling my best. And I want to. What can I do about that? And I'd like to think, and I hope, that a large part of that, or a significant part of that deductive reasoning and that conclusion that he's able to draw is because he sees how his mother and I live our lives. Yeah. What we order when we go out, what we cook in the house, how whether he wants to wake up with me or not, I'm going to the gym while I'm here. I have 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. and here's what I want to do. And I plan these things out and it's my lifestyle and it's what I do for fun. People on there. I knew which places I wanted to go see and where I wanted to get it in.
Did you go to Venice? Did you go to the Mecca?
So yeah, So I went to Gold's.
Of course.
So I went to Gold's Saturday morning. And I got to Gold's at 6 a.m. and I wanted to be there. And I'm happy with family sleep. You got to come with me. Like he knows, here's my schedule. Yeah. You could join me. I'm up but I'm not waiting for you either.
Right.
So I went to Gold's at 6 a.m. I went to the Mecca. I saw the old school guys. I had a really good time. And then because I'm spoiled. I like fancy. I like to pamper myself. I will go train with the Navy SEALs for the weekend, but I want to go to the St. Regis and get my nails done afterwards and go to the spa. So I did my workout at Gold's, and then I went over to a place called Hume.
Oh yeah.
Yes, this new like members-y kind of thing over there that a friend told me about. And I went over there because I could do my treadmill work. I'm getting ready for a big hike in June in Jackson Hole, and they have the cold plunge and they have the saunas. And I like both.
There's nothing wrong
I want
to
have the calluses on and the grit and everything else on this side, but when you flip them over, I want it to look like I'm a really pampered, person also. I like both. So that's what I did. And all I have to do is bring back 2 cappuccinos and everybody wins and they were happy. But if anyone wants to join me, they're more than happy to join me.
We don't give our kids enough credit on this part. I have all my girls have done it differently, but they've all arrived back to, I should get outside more. And the other thing I've learned as a parent is when they have the epiphany, we don't do something like, we've been talking about this for years. It's like, okay, tell me more. Mm-hmm. Because I think the tendency is like, oh my God, this kid, like, finally, we've been saying this for 5 years. It's sort of like, that's a rule of mine too. I never say I told you so in my marriage, in friendships. I don't say that. You might get a glance from me like, shit, really? Like, like I have friends that have been talking, I've been encouraging them to work out with me for free. I go 3 days a week, 8:30, like a hammer if I'm in town. And they'll be like, maybe I should come. And it's like 10 years in. And they might get a glance like, oh, okay, but not saying, I told you so, but letting them have the room to have that discovery because maybe they actually didn't hear us.
It's more than one thing.
Yeah.
Because I've been there too. When I was first starting to make changes, I was really anxious to get everybody on board and join me. Because look, I've seen the light, okay? look at what's out there. And I went from, and I'm not a joiner. Okay. Like I'm not by nature a joiner. I'm more of an introverted person. I am not let me drink the Kool-Aid and jump on board and wear the merch, and I didn't even like it in business, like the Patagonia vest with the company logo. Like everybody looks like they're in the same club. And I'm not really that kind of guy. And as I started to kind of make changes in my life, particularly on the health and fitness side, I was inviting people over. I built this gym in my house and come over and I put this stuff, and I was inviting all these guys. And who were they? They were the other guys that were coaching Little League, that I kind of knew. And they were some guys at work, and there were some clients, and they were some other dads, who went to school with my boys. And what happened? None of them came. Nobody took me up on it. I would send out these texts, come over on Sunday morning, garage doors rolling up, let's do this. I'd roll up the garage door. And for a while, it would be text after text of, hey, I can't make it, or there are all these other reasons and excuses. And it was like a punch in the gut. It was really deflating. And I took it really personally for a while. Nobody wants to play with me. Nobody wants to get on board, and nobody wants to come over and do this. And then I turned it around and saying, don't text me back. The garage door is open. Either you're here or you're not here, kind of thing. I can take control over this, and still nobody came. But over time, I would go in there and then I would train by myself. And first it felt lonely and it was fun. But I enjoyed it, and I was getting results, and I was feeling pretty good. And then I started living virtually through other people. I'd put the workouts on the screen, and I'd watch people like you, or other people I admired that weren't geographically located near me, but here were people that were doing what I wanted to do and what I was trying to do. And I didn't feel as alone that way. And when I started putting it out there publicly, and I started writing about it in the newsletter, and I started to show up at work, and I would dress a little bit differently, and the clothes would fit a little differently. And I had a little bit more energy, and I'd be out with people, and they would go around the table, and they would be taking everybody's drink order. And my drink order was no longer an alcoholic, drink. Oh, what's going on? You're not drinking tonight? No, I've got an early morning trainer. I got to work out tomorrow with intention. What started to happen was, again, like I said, you attract and repel exactly what you deserve. I would get a DM from a guy and say, hey, can I join you, on that? Yeah. Or a text message going like, hey, I'm not in as good a shape as you, but like I'll work out for like 6 months and then I'll come over. I would get that a lot. Oh, they were intimidated.
You do talk about that, getting ready to basically start is a no-go.
Yeah, it's like, no. You don't work out to get ready to work out.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have to get ready to then be. The point is like, it's all inclusive. And I was, no. There's no barrier to entry. I was you, I am you. Everything is scalable. We'll figure this all out. Again, just like at XPT, we didn't show up there and there was 25 ringers.
No, and there's no way to get ready sometimes. You just got to start.
Correct. You just got to start. And today is always the day to start.
Yeah.
So again, it has, when you don't chase it, when you don't push back to even our kids or to everybody else, and you let it kind of happen organically and and intentionally, because it's you, what you learn is that everything you want is out there. Everything and everyone. It exists. It's out there. You just have to be willing to get it, to find it, to wait on it, or it'll find you. But as long as you are continuing to blaze that path and to put your best foot forward, it will happen. Just don't quit. Just don't get off the bus, right before the best stop, before you get where you're trying to really go, and think that you have to go back the other way. Those have to be your friends because they've always been your friends. Those have to be your colleagues or your clients or any of those things. They don't. Doesn't make them bad people.
No.
They just might not be your people. Yeah. We inherit a lot of people in our lives, especially as we get older, and through our kids and through our schools and through the teams and through the leagues and through our jobs. They don't all have to be our people.
No.
So I think that's the beautiful thing now also, is that the home field advantage is gone. They don't even have to be in your neighborhood. They don't have to be anywhere near you. I mean, some of my closest friends, like there's a lot of negatives about social media and certain other things, but some of my closest friends and people I respect and trust the most are people I get up and I go, yep, Mark's rowing this morning every single day.
Yeah.
And he's down in Miami. And you know what? I can do it too. And then I can go back to work, the shit that's really important in my life.
Yeah.
Also.
I think it's community. I think something that's so important for men. I always joke. I'll go outside and I do reverse objectification at my house. I call Air Beefcake. That's my nickname for him. So if I come in and I'm like, has anyone seen the beef? Where's the beef? Everybody knows that's Laird, right? It makes me feel good. I don't know. I like it. And so sometimes I'll go in the sauna and there'll be 6, 7, 8 guys in there. And I'm like, oh, there's a lot of beef in the sauna today, And so, but it's such a beautiful thing to see these men together talking about stuff, talking about their work, talking about what their struggles, their stress, my wife, a teenage daughter, whatever. I think this is important, community for men. Women, we do this intuitively. We're always connecting and helping each other. Hey, do you know someone for this and that? How do you suggest to men to create community? And you said it like, hey, you're going to do it. Because I always say to people, because this is our house here. That's the way it happens. We open the door. You come, you don't, you don't. It's rolling. We're rolling. Saunas are on. We're going. But it takes a little more effort. You got to be willing. Like, you're going to clean up after people. It's all that stuff. And it's completely worth it. But is there anything else you say or suggest to guys? Because I think that this is a really big help in not only making the changes, but keeping the practice.
Yes. I think you have to understand and start to also learn what kind of person you are. Again, I said I'm not a joiner, per se. Do you want to be part of a community? Do you want to lead a community? Do you want to be a specialist or do you want to be a generalist? Meaning, do I join one community and I'm all in on that community and that thing? Or am I inherently curious by nature and I want to be involved in a number of different things? So I'm willing to go, okay, I'm not going to be the best at XPT or surfing or anything, but I'm going to be able to hold my own because I want to go once a year or be part of it. But I also want to climb this mountain and I also want to play guitar and I like trying different things. So again, back to your operating system and what's on your map and what works for you. You get to choose these things. And one thing that's really worked for me is not to try to commit and figure it out again too quickly. I don't know what I want to join and what I want to do and what I really like and dislike or love or can tolerate or where all of these things fit. So for me, my definition or thesis around community, if you will, is I want to be out there trying different things and meeting different people consistently. So on a quarterly basis, I put something on my calendar, something that's interesting, something that's exciting, something that's challenging. And they're not always physical. They can be different. I'll name drop for a second.
Yeah,
because,
that's okay. You can do it.
Drop the name. Here we go. Pick it up off the floor. Like, okay. Because I always assume that everybody that is somewhat like famous or known knows everybody else. And I'm always on the out like, of course they know everybody else. I don't know anybody. And I'm just trying to get in on these interesting people. But on the way up here, I sent a message to my friend Chris Robbins. And Chris is Mel's husband. And if you've read Mel's new book, The Let Them Theory, it's fantastic and she's fantastic.
And she's crushing it too.
Crushing it. And I've actually never met Mel and I've spent quite a bit of time with Chris. But where I was going with this is Chris was kind enough to invite me to his retreat. He hosts these retreats called Soul Degree. And basically they're men up in the woods in Vermont. And it's, and you're getting deep and you're getting vulnerable and you're walking tens of miles a day through the woods with these men. And then you are sitting in the circles and there's the fire thing and the yoga and the meditation and it's pretty remarkable, what he's leading as a community. And this is about as uncomfortable for me
What is a New York, Long Island guy? That's a problem. What are you talking about?
Right. I mean, you talk about like what you say yes to and what you say no to.
Mm-hmm.
Like this should have been a hard no. Old Greg, this was a hard no, but this was an opportunity for me to test myself, if you will. And one of the reasons I got started even with Midlife Male and writing and podcasting and putting this out there is because selfishly, I now have to say yes to some of these things.
Right.
It's my job.
It's fitting into your job.
It's my job. I'm being of service. How do I know whether I could recommend this, enjoy this, do this if I don't go and experience it myself? So that's the way I let my guard down. That's the way I ask these questions without as much fear because I'm obligated to, Gabby, as a journalist, if you will, or as a thought leader, if you will, not because I really want to do these
I'm
things.
with you.
It's because I'm scared shitless to do a lot of these things. And the way I get over my fear and develop confidence, if you will, or the appearance of confidence is to say yes to some of these things that I would normally say no to. And then I'm able to report back and exactly what I experienced there. So if you don't know, just try. Write it down. Look, you can Google. I just Google stuff all the time too. Hey, I'm thinking about this, or I've heard about this, and what comes up, and is there a trip about that? Or, I was over-indexed on a lot of physical stuff in the last couple of years, so maybe it would be nice to shift it and do something a little bit more on the spiritual side. Mm-hmm. Or a lot of the stuff I've done has been pretty selfish and been me. Getting up and going and doing it. What if I brought, what if Kate came on this? What if we did this as a family thing? What if I did something with our son for his 22nd birthday and we're thinking about this? How do I integrate new ways of sharing and experiencing? And also under the auspice and the truth of these are good stories. And I don't know what the stories are per se. I don't know what the beginning, middle, and end is going to be, but I know whatever it's going to be, if it helps one person, then that feels good to me.
Yeah.
So that's even how I view community. I don't want to be a stand-up and let's mastermind this and yell at you and tell you again what to do or any of those things. I think that there's a place, and we're really trying to develop this with what we call our inner circle. Mm-hmm. I think there's a place for smart, accomplished, reasonable, real men to just have conversation, communication, collaboration, connection that is surrounded by access and insights and positive networking and a degree of accountability that works for us. And it doesn't have to be any more special, if you will, or groundbreaking or transformative or give me 90 days and $900 and we're going to change your whole life. No, play that long game. And be involved that way. And if you don't want to show up to the calls, don't show up to the calls. We'll record them. You can listen to them in your own time, your own way, if that works for you. Want to show up to some of them because that's what you can make, because you are living your message and going to the Little League game and the volleyball game, and take more power to you. Then we're happy to see you when you're here. And we understand why you're not, because these are conscious and intentional choices. Want to talk to somebody like Laird? Let's bring him in, because you know what? For 47 years of my life, I didn't have access to anybody like that. And you guys probably didn't either. Let's bring him in and you can ask some questions. And if you're afraid to ask the questions, send them to me in advance or type them in. Like, how can we meet you where you are?
Yeah.
I think those things, common sense is not so common.
I know. We talk about that a lot.
And that's what it's really like, hey.
But you have structured it in a way that is very, I don't want to say user friendly, but you've done it. Even your, midlife action plan map. Like you have the 6 F's. Like you've created some spots where people can at least throw an anchor. You
have to be able to break it down. Again, I'm a simpleton. I'm not a super intelligent guy. Again, it's not just being self-deprecating. I'm smart enough. I took good school, smart enough, had some success, had some failures. I've tried enough things at this point to have a theory about things. I've talked to enough really successful and accomplished individuals at various ages, stages, and genders, sorted it out in there and said, you know what? Okay, 5 rules, 6 F's, one question. Okay, I can do that. I can evolve from that. And I think anybody can also. And I think that you either define midlife or midlife defines you. You've got to have a definition.
When was the moment? I know, 47 was a cathartic number for so many different reasons. But when did you really believe, actually, this is, kind of the best time, this best time? Because, it's interesting for me, especially coming from such a physical background, right? Mm-hmm. Sport, and even, there's a vanity component. There's all these things. There was a point where mine is always coming from a level of acceptance. I mean, You're a New Yorker. It is what it is, right? I live very much by that. When I see something to be so true, like it is what it is, I don't need to bang up against it. I go, how can I find my way to have peace, to have a relationship with this? So, I'm older than you are, but there's a part of me that I had to start in my 40s going, no, you better find the way to dance with this, because you're going to get crushed with aging, with time, with the way it is. Mm-hmm. So I started to adjust, and a lot of it is actually raising children, right? You either learn to get new skills, get new perspectives, get new ways of thinking and behaving, or you're going to get killed. You're going to crumple, and you're going to be brittle, and you're going to fracture your relationships. And so it's like grow or die, basically. Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering when the moment for you where you're like, no, midlife can actually be sort of this interesting best time.
It's a mindset shift. You're absolutely right. And I know the date and the time and the place where it really hit, but that's just the date and the time and the place that it hit as a result of how many other hits were taken along the way. And then finally, there's that one that knocks you out.
Yeah.
It wasn't one punch. It was, I was getting softened up by a lot of punches over a lot of time. And then this wasn't even the hardest one, that knocked me out. I was just at the weakest point. I'd been weakened over time. Mm-hmm. So this is the one that knocked the tree over effectively. And was it 47 in the parking lot of my office building on the 10-year anniversary with my firm, same age as when my father died. Looking up at that building, having the office, like I said, on the 24th floor with a view of downtown Houston and a multi-million-dollar book of business, and wearing a suit and in the reserved parking spot that all the equity partners had, and all of the things. And I'm sitting there and I go, I can't go inside. I don't want to get out of the car. Is this what my life has become? And more importantly, is this what it's going to be like every day from now on?
Yeah.
Am I willing to accept that? And that was the question. The acceptance of conformity, complacency, redundancy, of transferring blame and accountability, of continuing to compare and contrast my life and my position to everybody else's out there, to not like the clothes I'm wearing, to look at my calendar and not want to take the appointments that are on it, or see the things that are most important to me on it. Again, reverse engineering back to the rules that have been created.
Yeah.
And saying to myself, do I want to actually do something about it? Because if I don't, I might as well not be here. And my dad didn't get this opportunity to be here, largely for choices that he made. He was a big smoker and so on and so forth. And in there, so am I doing myself a disservice? Am I doing his memory a disservice? Am I doing my family a disservice if I don't own up to what it is that I'm feeling and do something about it? And we touched on this at the beginning. Now, I could have walked in the building and handed in my resignation or quit and done all these other and blown it all up. And that's not the move. At least it was not the move for me, because where I was in my life at that time, that would have made a bad situation a lot worse. Because if you think you're unhappy and depressed and miserable when you're making a lot of money and you have equity in a firm and everything from the outside looks good, and you just wait until they turn the faucet off.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you realize that your woodworking passion doesn't cover 1/18th, okay, of the overhead you've established for yourself. What that does to your confidence, what that does to your ego, what that does to your feeling of as a man. But when you go back into saying, I can fix this, I can create a plan around this. It doesn't have to happen today. But once you make that plan, once you take that ownership, once you set that course, I don't know where you're going, you're never going to get there. Now I know where I'm going. It might be 12 months, might be 24, but it changes your mindset. And once you change your mindset, you can change your life.
Yeah.
So that's how it happened. And you put together the series of events along the way that help to make you who you are. You say, hey, I either win or I learn. There's no more losing. I spent a lot of years feeling like a loser and saying like there's winning and losing.
Yeah.
And then you shift it into I either win or I learn, and that there is a longer game to this. And it's not to prolong mediocrity. It's not to accept less than your worth, but it's to acknowledge that the long game can be a winning game and looking ahead. And when I see people like yourself, I see people like Larry, people say, who do I look at? I look at people that are ahead of me. And by ahead of me, I mean, look what they're doing at 60. Look at what they're doing at 70. There's some guys in their 40s that are younger that look at what they're doing because they've avoided a lot of the mistakes and missteps that I've made, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Also, there's a whole nother group of younger individuals that we're working with and hoping to really help, that want to know where the puck is going because they were not raised like me.
I was going to say they had a different message. You know, it's interesting. If it'd be like if you're climbing a ladder or going on a path and someone was instructing you and said, hey, listen, so part of this is there's going to be holes in the path and also, or the ladder, you know, they're going to give away. So when you're walking, you wouldn't be like, oh my God, that gave away. And it's the same thing with losses or failures, whatever that means. It's like if we could teach people that that's just all baked into the whole thing, and not to, I don't want to say not to worry about it, but go, okay, start to recognize maybe which part of the ladder might give based on what gave before. So you could start to recognize, you know, certain things, learn from that, whatever. But it is interesting. I was watching tennis with Larry. He loves to watch tennis. And he was saying that, if I'm not mistaken, that, you know, the greats, Djokovic and you know, Nadal and Federer, they beat their opponents 54% of the time. 54. You would think, based on how elevated they are and how much they've won, that they won 85% of the time. They won 54% of the time.
It's slight. It's incremental. I saw that stat, or I can't remember whether it was in the Roger Federer documentary or maybe even a speech he did at a college, I think, where Federer gave the commencement address. And I think he alluded to that. He might have said it there. And yeah, I grew up a tennis player also. Yeah. And I love that sport. And it's so slight. It's so incremental. That analogy when you could play 20 deuce, add, deuce, add, deuce, add, and I think somebody's going to win that by 1 point, and that's going to be the game, and that game might be the set, and that's how razor thin the margin of victory is for the very best.
We're talking about
in the world.
What's perceived as greatness. You know?
Well, what happens is if you're 54%, I guess, to there. But you're 54% over and over and over again. Yeah. Now your winning percentage is 80, 90%. But it's, again, the little wins, the little points in between that add up, that make the big difference. It's like the theory about being 1 degree off And you're,
Oh yeah. And then you're really far away once you get there.
airplane degree,
Yeah.
you say, hey, look, if we set the, the airplane's flying, and if you turn the dial and you take it 1 degree off course, you're not going to notice at the beginning, you're not going to notice, but if it stays 1 degree off course for the duration of the flight, or most, you're going to end up way off course.
Yeah.
And that's what happens to a lot of men. I use that a lot. We get on these paths and we don't see how far off course it's really taking us. The career, the promotion, the staying late, and then one time, being the first one in, being the last one out. 1 day, 1 week becomes 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. The first time you buy a bigger pair of pants.
Yeah.
And then the next time, and the answer is not continue to buy bigger pants. The answer is not to continue to be the first one in and the last one out every single day. That's your 1 degree that compounds year after year. And they wake up 5, 10, 15, 20 years into this body of work. And they are so far off course from what they set out to achieve and be that they don't know how to course correct at that time.
It feels overwhelming, especially when you have stuff, and you've got bills to pay. You talk about, a lot, money versus freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a really important distinction.
I love money. I like nice things. We like nice things. I've never had a great relationship or understanding or financial acuity. I've never really had interest per se in learning how money really works. I regret that, or I wish I had more of an interest in those things. I'm learning a little bit more as we get older, and our son is helping me a lot now because he actually has an interest and he's in business school. Great. And he can handle the family finances. But I do have a theory around finance and around wealth, if you will, which is I want to have enough money to do what I want, when I want, with who I want, for as long as I want. Okay, so what does that look like? Now, if you want to fly private, it's one number.
Very different number.
Yes. If you want to, if you want a 10,000 square foot house in the highest, tax zone and zip code and wherever it is that you're living, this. If you want a second one, if you want expensive art on the wall, whatever you're into, I'm not saying it's wrong. It's back to, does it work for me and does it work in the plan? Now, if I want to spend time with my kids and I want to travel and I want to do things, you can start to put the pieces again together at different stages of your life. If our house is paid off and the 529s were set up and the kids can go to college, okay, and I can do this and that, well, maybe we don't need 10,000 square feet. Because those are more rooms to decorate and more things that can go. More is not necessarily better.
And
better is
stuff
better.
Breaks and you got to clean it.
Yeah,
and it's
I
just
don't like bills and overhead. We're actually in the process of this right now. We're really thinking about downsizing because we're about to be empty nesters. And we had this, I'm shared this anyway because it's just happening and I'm not totally sure if Kate's on board with it. So we'll figure it. So maybe when this comes, we're still in the process. You see, we're working things out. But what if we sold our home? What if we sold our home and we downsized, and instead of this, the American dream is home ownership and everything, what if it's not?
What if it's not?
What if we rented and we could not have property insurance and property taxes and maintenance and all this? I don't like kind of clutter. I don't like a lot of bills, a full mailbox full of obligations and responsibilities. I'm still very much not a grown-up in a lot of ways. What if I could transfer this risk to somebody else, these responsibilities and obligations, and I could write one check per month and rent a beautiful place, and anything that goes wrong, it's somebody else's problem. And we could lock the door behind us, put the dogs in the truck and drive to Colorado and spend a month there if we want to. What if we could do some of those things? How much would that really cost? And what would that add to our lives?
Yeah.
And we talked about it at the beginning before we started rolling. I could stay in a hotel when we come out here. Or we rented a little cottage house. Hotels were not, they were expensive for what they were. It's a small little box. There's a lot of money for valet parking. But if we rented the house, I've got a coffee machine in the kitchen so I can eat better. And it's not, you just start thinking about how these things look and work and feel for you. And then you back in again to what can I afford? And a big thing for us has become experiences over things.
Yeah.
Very easy to accumulate things. I mean, I don't wear, like, I don't know, like, I have this like drawer full of watches, and I don't even like to wear a watch anymore. And I don't even like the impression or appearance that it gives. It's just like, literally, like, why don't I just sell those and like invest the money, like extend the runway? We're just really concerned. I don't know if concerned is the right word, but I'm really becoming kind of obsessed with extending the runway and enhancing our quality of life. And it doesn't mean I'm not a minimalist by any stretch of the imagination. Heck, fashion is one of my 6 F's.
I know, I love that.
I like things. I like style. But this quality over quantity and this notion of experiences over things, but things when they enhance the experience.
Yep.
Meaning, like, I carefully pack to come to XBT.
Right.
Like, there's a way I want to look. I want the best stuff around, but I don't just want random stuff that makes me, house poor or thing poor and experience poor. I want to be experience rich, if that makes sense.
And what I really appreciate about that philosophy is it's not fixed. You're saying, where are we at? We're evaluating. Where are we at now? Oh, our kids are this age. When you have little kids and they've got toys and routines and bedtimes, man, you got a house. That's what you're doing if you're lucky, because you're sort of in that rhythm of there's a consistency, and they take naps and they do this. As your kids get older, it's like, well, let's reassess where we're at. And I love that, because if you go back to performance or nature or anything, think about people used to migrate based on weather, adaptability, flexibility, resilience. These are baked into all best principles.
They are. And in our 20s, we didn't have to care.
Right.
I mean, look, in our 20s, like, a company that went, belly up and my stock became worthless. And they were like, just sell the furniture in the office and take what you can get. What did we do in our 20s? Like, Kate and I took the 10 cents on the dollar that they gave us, and we went to France for 2 weeks and biked around the wine country, and blew all the money. We had no kids. We'll figure out where we're going to live after. In our 30s, when you have one child and then a second child, you do start, okay, now we should buy the home again, and we should think about the schools, and everything we're getting is for them, and the experience and the life and all of those things. You get into your 40s and you start rethinking some things, and you're around a lot of people who are doing things a lot of different ways. Yeah. And some you like, some you really don't like. Some of it makes you feel shitty about yourself. Some of it makes you feel good about yourself, and become kind of jaded and judgmental and territorial around certain things. And then maybe you get to a point, and Kate's older than I am. She's 55 and I'm 52, where maybe some of this wisdom and experience and stuff kind of settles in, and you really kind of figure out who you are, and you're not as concerned about what anybody else thinks or as much. And quite frankly, there aren't as many people around anymore, because you're not in the same schools anymore, and we're done playing Little League, and the kids have spread out, and we've got one in Colorado and one who's going to be in California. And you know what? They don't want to come home to I wouldn't either. They want to come home to our house. They want to stay and explore and do what they're doing. Would it be better, one or two, if we had the freedom to say, let's go out there.
Rendezvous with them.
Yes. Yeah. Or let's take that trip, all of us, and go rent that place in Costa Rica and surf and bring a chef in and do these things together. Because there's one stat that stands out to us that by the time your kids are 18, you'll spend something like 90% of the time you're ever going to spend with them. That's really has stuck with me.
Tom Papa says, don't look at scores and numbers, because I brought that up to him. He's like, oh, no, you don't look at the numbers. But that's right. Well, because they go on.
I believe both. I have another friend that says, like, give generously and don't keep score.
Yeah.
And I believe in both. I get the theory. Okay. I also believe in give generously and keep score, because if the score is so fucking lopsided, pardon my language, that you need to know that too. You need to acknowledge that for your own sanity and mental health and so on and so forth, that relationships, everything are two-way streets. I believe in both. And I think I don't want to hang my hat on being stuck on a statistic, but we are cognizant of it and saying, hey, could we be on the other side of that? Yeah. And intentionally, what are we doing to make sure that we're really trying as a family
to be together.
Because I didn't have all that for as long as I wanted. And I do tell my boys that too, like, hey, I might be suffocating in certain things, but I'm learning this with you and I didn't have this. So I'm trying to see it from both sides.
Yeah, Does aging, does it ever, anything, parts of it freak you out at all?
All of it.
Yeah.
I'm having trouble sleeping on my left side because I've got a shoulder issue and a nerve thing.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime I can't train the way I want to, or I feel a little ache or a pain, or I feel something changing, it scares me and freaks me out because I want to be capable. I don't like feeling
feeble.
And it's not even about like weakness. I don't like feeling capable or being able to do something. Like by definition, like fitness is being fit for duty. Like anytime I'm injured or I'm feeling subpar, like, oh, I'm not technically fit. I'm not fit for duty. If somebody asked me to do this today, I would struggle to do it. Yeah. So that about aging does freak me out a little bit. I'm not particularly concerned with, aesthetics in the regard to like, I believe that aesthetics are a byproduct of healthy living, meaning if I'm doing the right things, I'll be the best version, of myself, the best, I'll be the best that I can I'm genetically predisposed to be. So like, I don't look at other people's body types and be like, I have to look like his body or this.
Yeah. That's like hell.
Yeah. That seems like a really tough way
I think that's a really important thing you just said, because it's, first of all, the gift of another year, right? My dad died at 33, your dad died at 47. Sorry. Oh no, I'm just saying like they never had the gift, but you said it. I believe that based on my practices, I'm going to be the best version of myself. And that is, what else can you do?
Yes. And I used to believe the opposite. Look, for years after my dad passed away, my motto was live fast, die young, leave a good looking corpse.
Yeah, sure.
Like, hey, I was a reckless youth. You call it Beefcake or whatever. My nickname was Reckless Youth by all my college buddies. Like I was out there just blowing it out because I didn't really have I didn't feel a real reason to kind of stick around, per se. Yeah. And I didn't really know what to do or what I wanted to do. So that seemed like an easy way out, if you will. Yeah. And now with aging, I see it as a privilege. Yeah. I see that there's something kind of cool about, the wrinkles. There's something kind of cool about the...
Speak for yourself on that one. Just kidding.
About the options again and the choices. And this is a lot of what we get into and a lot of what guys are not talking about. Right. Should I get the hair transplant? Yeah. Or not? My buddy just got one the other day. Guys are becoming much more open about
Did he go to Turkey? Where'd he go?
No, he didn't take Turkish hairlines and fly over there.
Oh my God, it's awesome.
I've heard it's amazing, but... Look, Botox and skin care, like a lot of these things are on testosterone replacement therapy and peptides and all of these things. And it's talked about, I'm a basics over biohacking kind of person. But at the same time, I don't want to be hypocritical. It's like, I'm on TRT and started at 49 after years of evaluation and thinking about it and blood work and competitions and doing things. And did I go to Kate's dermatologist and get some Botox in my forehead and try it out because I said, I'm okay with being bald. I don't think I'm okay with being, bald and wrinkly, with a giant forehead. Let's see what this feels like or looks like. And then maybe you go back, maybe you don't. I think it's all again about us finding what works for us. Yes. And you mentioned balance. Yes. I call it harmony, in there. Like
I love that you talk about that it's not, there is no, because I believe this too. I don't think it's like you have these buckets and all the chips are balanced. And you talk about that. It's not about balance. It's about harmony.
I also don't think you can ever really be perfectly balanced. It gets bad. And also, how are we judging balance? If we're not supposed, are we trying to balance everything in our life in a day? Are we trying to balance it over what period of time? Meaning like I can't be perfectly fit, the perfect family man, the perfect
No.
financial planner, perfectly dressed, have the perfect amount of fun every day. Look at my calendar. Here are perfect days.
Yeah.
No, we're in different seasons and chapters of our life. And at different times, different things take priority.
Yeah.
And that's the other part of this conversation, which I think a lot of individuals miss, which is, hey, again, the long game looks like now might be the time for you to over-index in your career.
Right.
By design, not by default, but because this is where you're at, this is where the trajectory is going. And if you seize that opportunity and capitalize on it, it can provide boom, boom, boom to help you get to your goal, your destination by following your standards here. But then in another, so something's going to take a hit. Yeah. Doesn't mean you're out of balance. It just means you're not in that season right now, or that's not the priority. When I was writing the book, you go deep. Okay. Yeah. That's a lot of hours to put in with the editor and do that. So some other things had to take a back seat.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take on my hardest physical challenge in the middle of writing the hardest thing I've ever done. That seems like that's too much in regard. So write the book. I still stayed healthy, but my fitness regimen looked a lot different than when I finished the book, put the book out there and said, great, now I can turn my attention to climbing the equivalent of Everest.
Winding it up. Yeah.
Yes. But over time, again, that is harmony. Yeah. And that is a degree of balance. I think it's just acuity, again, and attention to what requires your attention and intention at what particular time. So you don't go off the rails. You don't drop health and fitness.
Right. You just dial it back.
Right. You just put it in its proper place.
And your food probably gets even tighter because you go, hey, I'm not moving quite as much, so I'm going to eat a certain way. And if I could get to bed, I will.
So that's this balanced portfolio, this of saying we have this total life wellness like we were talking about. It's like a stock portfolio. You don't want all your eggs in one basket. You want some diversification in there. So if my workouts are scaling down a little bit because of where I am in my season, then I need to be a little bit more intentional with my diet, my nutrition, my sleep, because that will offset the fact that I'm not burning, as many calories per day or building as much muscle. And then my bank account might benefit over here if I write a good book versus a mediocre book. I could write a mediocre book and do all these other things, but if I take 2 more hours a day and really dial in, I could have a really hopefully good book that's going to impact a lot more lives and launch the next phase of the business and not have regret that I didn't do that.
Yeah. And I think another thing that's helpful is, especially for men, because sometimes I feel like they are a little more stoic, is talk about that at your family dinner. So you guys, hey, I'm on this project and I'm going to just do this. I'm going to hit it hard, but I'm like aware and we're going to, we'll have this more family time, or we've got a trip planned at the other end of this. I think there's also things where just light communications with the people that are close to you, because then everyone goes, oh, I know what's going on. And you don't have to feel guilty and weird. And they're supportive and you're conscious. And then you can do the thing freely.
That's a huge component of this. A lot of what trips, people up, men in particular, is this, bringing other people in to, we're on the same team. It's not about me being the leader of the team or the captain of the team or having all the answers or having to push the boulder up the hill all by myself and for everybody else. We're on the same team here. We have to communicate. We all have roles on the team. No one is more important than the other. And how do we communicate, connect, and collaborate on this and understand the rules of engagement for our family, because we're all trying to get somewhere. And we do this, and this has taken time too. So we have one rule in our house. It's the 80% rule, which is with our boys. The rule was, guys, I'm going to be at 80% of everything you do. 80% of your games, if you're playing lacrosse, if you're playing basketball. And when our boys were playing and I was able to coach, I would alternate seasons. They knew that. I would coach Harper one season and then Autumn the next season and rotate back and forth so that it was as best we could. And they would understand, this is your brother's season, I'm head coach. And for you, I'm going to cheer and I'm going to be. But the 80% rule was based around that notion of 100% is setting you up for failure.
Yeah.
And a few things we wanted to establish. One, we want to establish independence with our kids too.
Big time.
That they can go out and play and compete and be the best versions of themselves. And they can do that without looking up and needing
mommy and daddy
to be there.
And also that they're there
everything.
really for themselves.
Yes, that this is about them.
Yes.
This is about them. You don't need my eyes on you all the time. You don't need that extra pressure, whether I'm putting it on or whether you're just feeling it again by the virtue of the fact that I'm there. I'll put a pin in that and I'll come back to that in a second. But the 80% aspect of it is life happens. I need to take that meeting. That deal is important.
Mm-hmm.
That keeps you in school. Okay, that extends our runway. That helps your mother. That is better for our relationship. That is the vacation that we want to take. That's all in the plan. And the standard is 80%. Now, here's the truth of the matter. I will likely beat the standard. When we set a standard, the idea is the standard is the minimum acceptable standard. If we hold the standard and adhere to the standard, that is good. What do we try to do? We try to beat our standard. That's how you get closer to your goal faster.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to be able to upregulate and downregulate based around that standard at the right times. But I'll be there. If you look up in the stands and I'm not there, you will know why. And you'll be able to handle it.
Right.
And here's what's going to happen. I'm going to come home and I'm going to tell you about the meeting or the conversation or the thing, and you're going to tell me about the game, and we're going to share our experiences, and we're going to get closer and better for it. Because combined, look at how much more powerful we became. Look at that dynamic versus you sacrificing for me sacrificing for you. By thinking we're doing the right thing, we're actually doing it for the wrong reason, the wrong way. We're both sacrificing. You're playing on your own, going hard in the paint, not needing me there. I'm actually handling my responsibility. We take pride in that.
Yeah.
And that's how we get stronger, and we don't, again, resent one another either.
And I think that this is an important thing for all people, but definitely men. A little bit of communication. Not only will you get the support that you need, but then the people around you get the understanding.
And this is the pin I wanted to stick in, because here's the other thing. When you're not present, you might as well not be there.
Right.
When you're in the stands and you're thinking about the meeting you didn't go to, or you're on your phone, or you missed the hit.
Yeah.
You missed the spike. You missed the moment anyway. They look up and they see you distracted, not being present, any of these things. That's so right idea, wrong execution there. So back to quality over quantity. When you're there, be present. If you can't be there, be the best you can possibly be. Make it for a good reason. You both understand that. But don't half-ass this where you're there, but you're not really there, whether that's the dinner table, the game, or anything else. I think that makes a stronger statement. That leaves a more lasting impression. That back to intentionality.
Yeah.
And what I've seen from a lot of men also is we're holding on too tight. Whether you call it helicopter parenting, whether you're living vicariously through your kids, it must be hard for your kids, I would imagine, with the type of lives that you and Laird live and the athleticism and achievement and accomplishment there. What I see is a lot of these men hovering. They go to every practice, and they're standing along, the fence line, or they're sitting in the stand. And what are they doing? They want their kids to be perfect. And they're watching what they're doing, and they're hovering over everything. And like you said, it's not their kids' time. The kids aren't relaxed. They're not enjoying it. They're not even letting the coaches feel it. The kids feel it. They're there at every practice. I got in a lot of trouble for this. Sorry, brevity is not my thing. But I got in a lot of trouble for this coaching Little League years ago. I was managing the All-Star team. They gave me, and they regret giving me the reins to manage this All-Star team, because once I got it, I said, I'm not going to do this the way we've been doing this. I'm sorry. Because the way we've been doing this, in my opinion, is not helping these kids.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the names off the jerseys.
The last names.
Yes.
Nice.
Because this has become about every dad and every family and about these individuals making this all-star team and throwing it in other kids' faces at school and everywhere else, and you didn't make it. And should be about the league and should be about the team that's in there. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to stop giving them candy every day after practice.
Well, that's a good one. Oh my God.
I know we've been rewarding them every day, but we haven't accomplished anything yet. We haven't even won a game. To give them candy after every practice and these other gifts, we are not going to do that. The mission, we haven't even started the mission. This is not the accomplishment, making the team and practicing. We haven't accomplished anything.
Right.
And the third thing is I'm banning all of you from attending practices.
Oh, that's great.
And here's why. Because I don't want that kind of a pressure. And I know you're sitting out there judging me. You're watching every position I put these kids in, because on an all-star team, what do we have? I'll tell you what we have. We have 9 shortstops, okay? Some pitchers, 1 kid who may want to be a catcher, okay? Everybody is the best on their respective squad, and now they're here. So I would do this drill, and I would tell every kid, go to your position. And that's what would happen. 9 kids would go to shortstop, 1 would go to catcher, 2 would go on the mound. Yeah. Okay.
No
and
outfielders.
then I would hit the ball to the right field and I would run the bases and go, we can't field the team this way. So what would happen is you move these kids into different positions. You got to get buy-in. And the parents are out there judging why my kid should be shortstop and he could be this, and why aren't other kids moving? And I said to them, anything I could do at practice, you can undo in the 5-minute car ride home. Here's what's happening. I don't want you there. And if you choose to undo it in the car ride home, that is your prerogative. But let me tell you something. When you're not there and I put so-and-so in right field and he becomes the best right fielder and he is excited to shag fly balls and he's laying out and diving and doing this, and he sees you out there and how angry you are that he's in right field, but he's so excited to be out there. We don't need that.
Yeah. It's so funny coming from sports. I don't understand how the world got like this. None of these kids are going to play professional sports. It just cracks me up.
Early sports specialization is a major problem. I know we're getting off topic and I do this and it's a little soapbox thing, but early sports specialization is a major problem. These select teams that you're not a select ball player. You just bought yourself onto a team. And some guy is hyping you up because he's taking your $300 a month and all this stuff. And now it's year round and it is such a complete racket. And we fell into it for a while. And it is a chapter in the book about why I'm not coaching my kids anymore. We got to a stage and what I saw from a lot of this and how it became more beneficial to our relationship and our family when they finally got to like middle school age and they were done with some of this. You can be somebody. You need to be coached by somebody else. You need to be around other individuals with other perspectives, and you need to be doing different sports every single season.
And there's data that suggests not only less repetitive trauma, so less injury, less damage to their body, but they develop different skills in different sports that make them better at whatever sport if they do choose one sport. So
absolutely. And you're right. They're not going pro. I think we played in one of the largest little leagues in the country for however many years we played in this little league. And you know how many kids went pro? Yeah,
like 2.
I think there's one kid's name on above the concession stand, from the whole league and the whole existence of the league, that is gone pro. But at 9 years old, we were all convinced that our kid is the next Derek Jeter.
It's insane. I mean, when I see it, Laird and I watch it and just go, we haven't pushed our kids into sports at all. And because at the end of the day, what I always say about sports is this: if you love it, then that's what it takes to really do it, because it's really hard. And so the idea is, even when it's hard, that you love it. Then for us as parents, I tell my girls, I'm not your coach, I'm your mom, then that's the win. Your pursuit, your understanding of knowing yourself on the platform, using that environment to better yourself and know yourself, that's really what it's for.
Here's what I like now. I like, again, being athletic. I mentioned it before. I like being capable. I like being healthy. And I hope that our boys continue to grow up with feeling that. Are they going, as you get older, you're not going to play organized baseball in your 20s and 30s. No. I also don't want you burnt out on health, wellness.
Or it's not a punishment.
Fitness in general. I certainly never want to use, or nor would I ever use, exercise as a punishment.
That's what people have to be careful too.
And we've seen a lot of that, which is you don't perform, you don't do something right, you don't listen, run a lap, do push-ups. You start to associate exercise with punishment and negativity. And that's absolutely wrong. The studies have shown that do not do that. I went out and met with a number of sports psychologists. I don't have to tell you like anything, okay? You got on this, but as somebody who didn't know anything and who was taking on responsibility of coaching children and having a philosophy around coaching and doing these, how am I going to approach it? What am I going to do or not do? And the old school theory of, run a lap, don't
suicides.
Right. All of these other things, where the conclusion that I came to based on the research and the people that I talked to is never to associate exercise or anything healthy with punishment.
Yeah.
What do? Take a seat. The punishment should be not being able to play, not being able to exercise. Exercise is a privilege. Playing is a privilege.
Yeah.
You misbehave, you don't get to be better, stronger, faster, healthier. The kids that listen and behave and who want to be there, they get to be better, stronger, faster, healthier. Yeah. If you're not on board, you get to be sedentary. You get to sit, because that's what mediocrity and misery and unhappiness and unhealth, that's what that looks like. We don't reward bad behavior with you getting better,
right? Making
you do something. It should be the other way around.
Yeah. So Greg, and kind of wrapping this up, because you have navigated a lot of terrain in these last 5 years, and sort of actively been in pursuit of information and answers that made sense for you and that have really appeared to make sense for a lot of other, especially males. I mean, your program, your book, Midlife Male. Is there anything that still keeps you up at night?
It actually gets me up early. It doesn't keep me up at night. It gets me up early. What's interesting now is that I'm exhausted by the end of the day. The good kind.
Yeah.
And I put so much into my days now that I don't have trouble falling asleep. It's like a joke, But what gets me up early is the worry. I worry about everything still. I always think the proverbial other shoe is going to drop. That this could all be gone tomorrow. Nobody's going to want to talk to me or say yes to an interview tomorrow. I'm going to run out of ideas. I'm going to say something wrong. The market is down 2,200 points, and what does that do to our runway? I worry about everything, and it gets me up early. And what keeps me going is I just go back to telling myself, control what you can control.
Yeah.
Make the better choice today. Continue to make the better choice the majority of the time. The majority of your life will get better. Okay, keep it simple. I do 3 personal and 3 professional things per day. That's the bandwidth. Write them down. Go in order of importance. And if I can do that, it does lower my heart rate, like your breath work, which I do every morning. It does help with the anxiety. It does help with the stress. It helps to keep me grounded. And those are those hours, those 6 to 9 a.m., if you will. And sometimes it's 5 to 7. But I get up early I take my blood pressure in the morning. I know I give you long answers to things, but I take my blood pressure like every morning because I wake up like amped.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I have to
make it happen.
Right. What happened overnight that I have to get up and now solve, today and keep going? Did it all this morning? I wake up. Did our newsletter get out? I know it's going to get out at 7 a.m. I know our editor is amazing and my team is terrific right now and it's going to get out. But something in me goes, I got to wake up and see it there. And then I got to check it for the 15th time. And then I got to wait for people to email and see because I want validation and acceptance and appreciation. Did they like it? Did it land? Did we write a hit song? I'm a mess, sorry, like in this regard. But that's what gets me going to to stay the course. So morning is my stay up at late at night. It's my wake up in the morning and try to get into the day with the right mindset.
I really appreciate your willingness. You carry two things very well, which is like a strength and directiveness and making it simple, but then willing to be vulnerable and say, I'm on the path and I'm going to keep asking the questions. And I really appreciate that, because I think people think in order to have something figured out that you don't have questions. And the fact of the matter is, you were talking about wide and shallow. It's like, that's life. You can kind of know and you don't, and you just keep moving in that same direction. And I really, with the midlife male, you've really struck that chord.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Remind people all the places that they can find you.
Not hard to find. Go to midlifemale.com. You can subscribe to the newsletter. You can get my free How to Maximize Midlife guide. You can follow me on Instagram at Greg Scheinman. I'm spending a lot of time on LinkedIn these days because that's where a lot of mediocre midlife millionaires are, quite frankly. Guys that are struggling. And talk to me. That's the thing. Reach out, talk to me. We're in a great spot right now where we're growing, which is wonderful, but I still have the access, if you will, and I really can wake up every day and I really want to engage with hearing what's going on out there from guys.
Greg, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone, for spending some time with me. Hopefully you got something out of it. If you did, feel free to share it with your friends, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And also, I want to hear from you. Tell me what's working, what's resonating with you, and how you're getting it done. Keep going.